This is a confession to you, my dear followers. I feel like I have something to say, so please hear me out, as this is the last video I will ever upload to this channel. For the last 4 years, I've had this YouTube channel where I and a few friends, as you know, have done ghost hunting. It's just us going to haunted places, bringing some equipment, and seeing if we can experience something supernatural. I first started this YouTube channel to create a side income. Honestly, it's an act. I've faked many of the videos to spike the algorithms and to get people to the channel, and I've hoped that one day, one of these videos would go viral. On this channel, I've often invited my friends. Most of the time, they've been up for it. They, like myself, have not believed in anything supernatural, but urban legends and stories of haunted places are great fun, and it doesn't take the belief in ghosts to get freaked out when you visit a haunted house at night. Being in such places always gives you a creepy feeling, but that feeling is something you quickly get used to. On my channel, I ask my subscribers for recommendations of places to go and see, and often, people give great suggestions. However, one problem is that when you've done a fair amount of these videos, there are no places left to investigate in the near area, which is a real challenge when you try to constantly upload new content. It was, therefore, convenient when one of my subscribers recommended a house nearby, in Hudsonville, known as the Petersen Mansion. According to this subscriber, the house was built and owned by a Danish immigrant, Jacob Petersen, who migrated to the United States around the 1850s. He was a wealthy man who had become rich from transporting goods on the Grand River, and was a well-respected man in his time. But, though he kept a clean appearance on the outside, he was a violent and foul husband and father. He was married to a beautiful woman, who, after the first year of their marriage, had lost the warm colors of her chin, and the spark, which had made her eyes seem so full of life, had faded and seemed lifeless. Everyone had known her as a social being, which all the other women aspired to, and her most distinct character trait was how genuinely nice she was to everyone. But all this was gone in just 1 year, and the woman was nothing but an obedient wife who, every now and again, gave hints of the shadows of who she once was. People had thought she had become ill since she had changed so much. They expected her time was limited, and in some ways it was, though no sickness was involved. Petersen and his wife had 5 children, 3 daughters and 2 sons. 4 were to be raised in the house because when his wife was in her 8th month carrying the youngest son, John had beaten his wife so violently that the heartbeat of the little one had stopped. She, therefore, birthed their dead infant, which only made matters worse. She mourned for her miscarriage and blamed her husband for the death of their infant baby boy. Not long after her miscarriage, the wife was found hanged in their kitchen. Allegedly, it was suicide, but people had grown suspicious of John and blamed the incident on him because they knew him to be a violent man, and because she had seemed so normal on the morning of her death. With his 4 children and no wife, John had to raise his children himself. He was hard on his son, but was equally or perhaps harder on his daughters, who were raised as boys. He had them do heavy work at the docks, lifting boxes and provisions on board the cargo ships, which made people wonder because they knew the family was wealthy and could easily afford someone doing the work for them. He beat his children daily and didn't even hide the bruises. He never remarried and didn't even look at other women because he had his daughters who had to take turns in his bedroom where he would do the most despicable things to them. When the children were old enough, they escaped from their father, one by one. And when the youngest daughter was about to leave, she brought her younger brother with her, even though he was still only 13 years old. When John Petersen died, no one ever claimed their inheritance because none of his children wanted anything to do with him. The house was, therefore, left to rot without anyone to take care of it. But it is said that Petersen is still walking the halls of his house. His spirit was so foul that he was denied entering heaven, and the devil wanted nothing to do with him either. But it's not only him who has returned. His wife is also said to be there, stuck with her husband, who still has his firm grip on her. Allegedly, many have experienced hearing strange noises in and around the kitchen area, where they have heard a crying woman, and some swear to have seen a man walking around there. Hearing this story, I became intrigued by visiting the house and asked my friend to join me. They were eager to go, but none could go on the day I had decided. I couldn't wait to see the house and decided to go and have a look for myself and plan a future video. The story almost wrote itself, and it would, therefore, be easy to make a new video. I arrived at the house in the evening and parked my car 1 block away from the house, so that no one would suspect anyone to be in the house. Then I walked up to the front door, which was kicked in. The windows were either boarded up or broken, which told me that someone had to take care of the house in some sense. Therefore, the story couldn't be precisely as it had been suggested. I didn't expect it to, because stories like these, I find, are seldom representing reality. Before entering the house, I felt eerie, like someone was watching. But since I was used to having this feeling and had taught myself to overcome it, I decided to enter accompanied with only my flashlight. The first room was a large entry with a beautiful staircase going upstairs. Leading from this entry, on the first floor, there was a passage, and I decided to investigate it first. The wooden floor creaked under my feet as I passed down the hall and into the kitchen situated by the end. It was still intact, though it was clear that people had been vandalizing, which the empty cupboards and broken pottery on the floor suggested. Since this was one of the places I knew a sighting had been made of the crying woman, I shouted to her in hopes of something happening. I wandered about on the first floor and was fascinated by how beautiful this house was, and how its decay had only added to its beauty. But the further I went in, the better shape everything was, as if those who had vandalized it had not dared to venture far into the house. The ghost stories may have been well known and believed. I saw old furniture, several fireplaces, old portrait paintings of men in uniforms, and curtains hanging from the high ceiling to the floor. And while observing everything in the silence in the night, I thought this was the perfect house for my channel. I found myself in the entry room again, looking at the second floor. The creaking of the wooden steps broke the silence as I increased the stairs. Though the house had been damaged downstairs, everything upstairs was still intact, like a time capsule. I walked through a corridor and peeked through many doors left ajar until I found a large living room at the end. I was once again fascinated with the large bookcases, which were so tall that you couldn't reach half without using a ladder. At the end of the room was a stained glass window, which colored the floor from the light shining from the moon. It made the center of the room visible while highlighting the shadows by the walls. I sat in a chair by the fireplace when I heard something in the house, though it seemed far away. It was as if a door was being opened, which shook me to my bones. This was the first time I had heard anything in any of the haunted places I had been, and I was sure that what I'd heard was real. I tried talking myself down, saying this was an old house, and if the rumors were true, it was in such a bad condition that such noises could only be expected. But then I thought of my friends. They knew I had ventured out there to investigate the house. Perhaps they were there to play tricks on me. It had to be them. I was, as said, used to the chilling feeling such places could bring, and I didn't believe in ghosts, so I managed to shake the feeling off me with only my decision to not let this sound bother me too much. I went out into the corridor again and found that all the doors left ajar were now closed. My friends had to be here on this floor, so I decided to find them, and instead of letting them play tricks on me, I was going to play tricks on them instead. I opened one of the doors and found a bedroom inside. I went in and closed the door carefully. Then I waited in silence and listened, and soon I could hear someone walking the corridor outside. First, the sound seemed to be approaching the room I was in. Then it stopped and continued back to where it came from. I opened the door again and looked out, and I saw a figure by the staircases. It wasn't any of my friends. It was a woman. I felt the blood in my veins turn to ice, and my heart was racing in my chest. Was this the lady that was said to haunt this house? Then I heard slight sobbing, and I knew that if this was my friends playing a trick on me, they were doing an excellent job. I felt genuinely scared, and as the footsteps were increasing again and the sobbing turned to loud-sounding crying, I felt like crying myself. The woman was approaching me, and I saw no way of escape. I ran to the window, and though it was far down, I planned on jumping. I tried opening the window, but it was stuck. I tried with all my strength, but it wouldn't move. "Guys, this isn't funny anymore," I said loud but nervously, and as I did, the crying stopped. I had to get out. The only way out was through the door and down the corridor. I opened the door once more and found the woman had disappeared. I ran towards the stairs as fast as I could, but before I reached it, another figure appeared coming up through the stairs. It was a man. I slammed through one of the side doors and slammed it shut, and pushed towards it in an attempt to keep the man out. As I did, the door started shaking as loud bangs came from the other side, as if he was trying to get in. It was the loudest sound I had ever heard, and it became quicker and louder until suddenly it stopped. I looked around me and felt almost dying when I saw a woman carrying an infant in her arms. She started crying, and she was inside my room, and as she did, the banging on the door started again. The louder the banging sounded, the louder the cries, and the louder the woman cried, the harder the banging. I screamed to make it stop, but nothing helped. I then saw the window again, and in sheer panic, I ran towards it, jumped through the glass of the closed window, and fell a whole story before hitting the ground. The glass had cut me, and I felt my legs were injured, but still, I rose to my feet again and started running while limping away from the house. I looked up to the window and saw the woman standing there, accompanied by a man who was there beside her. This was the last glimpse I have ever had of the house, and I swear I'll never go there again. And here comes my confession. I know I have acted as if I believed in ghosts and everything supernatural, but I haven't for most of my time here on YouTube. I have led you to believe in my act, and I am genuinely sorry for that. I have always been a firm disbeliever, which is why I have dared to venture to all these places to make this content. And the ironic thing is that now that I do believe, I don't want to make any more videos. I am genuinely sorry that I've made these videos, and for benefiting from my staged content. I hope you can forgive me, but if there is anything you can take away from this, please do not. And I repeat, do not ever enter the Petersen mansion.